Aaron, real quick, can I ask you?
We're live, everybody. We're recording.
Oh,
We're not actually live. We're just recording. I'm sorry. I just realized.
Don't say anything bad.
Yeah, no. If you say anything bad, this video just won't go anywhere, so don't worry about it.
All right, Adam, you want to set us up? What's going on? Like what we're actually doing here?
Yeah. All right, guys. So we're here this morning to go through what is my buyer's consultation. Okay, so this is the exact same thing that I do for every single person, whoever steps into my office. How it works to get them to this point, typically, Adelie sits there and bangs the phones until she finally gets somebody on the hook that's willing to come in and talk to us about real estate. From there, she pretty much hands it off to me, and she says, all right, go talk to them, try to get them to work with us. So we have them come into the office.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, what was your name again?
Aaron.
Aaron, nice to meet you, man.
You too.
Obviously, I'm sure you were probably already told. My name's Adam Kautz. I go by Real Agent Adam online and pretty much everywhere in the real estate industry.
Okay.
So I know a little bit about your situation. Adelie kind of filled me in here, but I always like to hear it right from the lips of the person themselves. So that's where I always like to start these conversations off.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Give me some background about how you ended up here in my chair, besides the fact that Adelie called you
Sure.
and got you in here.
I've been working for a while. Me and my fiance got engaged about a year ago.
Congrats.
And we'd like to start a family, and we're thinking, you know, it's going good. Maybe it's time to get in there, buy a house, and get the fam started.
All right.
That's pretty much it. But she's going to pretty much follow along with what I'm saying, so that's why I'm here meeting with you and on both of this.
All right. So to interject, occasionally I'm going to interject in here some things that would typically happen that aren't going to happen in this one. Typically, I would never have him come in alone without her. I would have both parties be here at the same time. If not, I would literally reschedule this appointment with this person until both of them could be there. If there's ever two decision makers, you always want both decision makers. You need everybody that's going to be involved in the decision to be there, or else you might as well just not even have the appointment. But for this sake of this, whole thing, we're gonna go ahead and do that. All right, so
I left my fiance, and now I'm looking to buy a home on my own.
there you go. There we go. Well,
No
hopefully
kidding.
it was a better decision to leave than to stay.
Yes, I'm very happy with my decision.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
My next one, buying a house.
That's what I like to hear. So
Time to move on.
before we go into anything too in-depth, I always have to start at the same place, okay?
Mhm.
The Real Estate Commission coerces me, we'll call it, to go over this document with you, all right?
Okay.
It's a really boring document, and honestly, if I'm being completely forthright with you, a lot of it on here is actually pretty common sense, but it is something that we're required to go over by law. As you can see right on here at the top, this isn't a contract, okay? This isn't gonna bind you to do anything. Doesn't mean you gotta work with me. Doesn't mean that you have to walk out here today and do anything at all. All this is stating is that you were in here today with me, and if the Real Estate Commission ever knocks on my door, I can tell them that, hey, here's the consumer notice and we got it. In all honesty, this is gonna just sit in my desk for the next 3 years and collect dust.
Okay.
But I do have to have it on file, all right? So give me one quick second. I'm actually gonna pull up a copy on my computer so I can follow along with you here. As I'm doing that, I can kind of start going through this with you. So the very first page there is really gonna talk about agency and how I can work with you, or how any agent can work with any person, all right? So you'll notice here, the very first one is a seller's agent, okay? So pretty straightforward. If you have a home to sell, I can help you sell that. Now, you don't already own a home, do you?
No.
All right. So obviously, I'm not going to be
That's
working for you as
my
a
first
seller's
one,
agent, but I will be working for you as the second one. So that would be a buyer's agent, okay? And what that allows me to do is work with you to help you buy a home, and that can be any home out there. It does not have to be a home on the market. It can be an off-market home. It can be an REO. It can be a foreclosure, short sale, bank owned. You name it, I can help you buy it. I can even help you with an auction home. Not really my forte, but it could be something if you wanted to go that direction that we could talk about, all right? So the next two, they're a little bit more complicated than the first two, but not super complicated. So a dual agent would be if you're interested in a property that I personally have listed on the market already, okay? Now, I am actually on a team with 6 other individuals, so the way it works for our team is, it's not just me, but anybody that would be on our team, it would be the same exact thing. As if I had it listed myself, I would be considered a dual agent. Luckily for us in Pennsylvania, we have both a fiduciary and a confidentiality agreement here that allows us to work both sides of that deal.
What does that mean?
So basically, a fiduciary means that I have to have your best interest at heart. I'll touch a little bit more on that when we get a little bit later into the conversation. And also that confidentiality basically is just stating that I can't tell anybody any information that you don't want me to divulge about yourself.
Okay.
So that would be for myself or anybody on my team. A designated agent would be for anybody else that works in my real estate office that has something listed that you're interested in. What does it do for you? Really, honestly, it doesn't change anything. It's really just a mark that we place on a piece of paper that designates me to be your agent and them to be their agent, because we work under the same brokerage. So what that allows us to do is say, hey, even though we have the same brokerage number, I'm a different person than this person. I'm working for you and they're working for them. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Awesome. The last one on here is a transactions licensee. I don't go over it super in depth because honestly I just don't practice that. That would be an example of it would be if you're buying a home from a loved one that passed away and you just need help with the paperwork. It's really mostly just paperwork that you're dealing with, being involved in that, and typically it's just like a flat fee structure that most agents do for that. But again, I'm a full service agent, so I don't really go into it much more in depth than that. If it's something that you wanted more information on, we can definitely talk about that more.
That's okay.
Awesome. So we'll flip here to the second page, and honestly, this is where it starts to get a little bit ridiculous. Some of these things are very common sense, but we'll bust through it here and we'll move on to the fun stuff, all right? So I have to comply with all real estate disclosure law. I have to account for escrow and deposit funds. I have to disclose any and all conflicts of interest that I might have, financially or otherwise. So for example, I recently finished a flip. If that was still on the market and you were interested in it, I would have to let you know that I do have ownership in that and I would be making a profit from the sale, not just as a real estate agent. Forgive me here as we go through. I talk a lot, so I have to drink a little bit of fluids, make sure I can keep talking to you. So I have to keep you informed about the transaction and any tasks that need to be completed. I have to disclose any financial interest that we would have in a service, such as financial, title, or otherwise. We actually have another document that we're going to go over in a little bit. It's going to go over exactly that. We actually do own a title company and we are tied in with a wealth management company upstairs. Everything in real estate is negotiable, okay? Just because you see a certain price on something does not mean that's what you have to pay. Now, I know in this market, that's not really necessarily the case. You're probably not going to be paying too much under list on most properties, but the sentiment still stays there. Just because you see a certain price does not mean that you have to ask for that certain price.
Good.
All right? All sales agreements must contain the property zoning classification. And then the last portion here is super important, so I like to read it verbatim, and then I like to explain what that is. It's called the Real Estate Recovery Fund. So the Real Estate Recovery Fund exists to reimburse any person who's obtained a final civil judgment against a Pennsylvania real estate licensee owing to fraud, misrepresentation, or deceit in a real estate transaction who's been unable to collect that judgment after exhausting all legal and equitable remedies. For complete details, there's actually a number down there that you can call to follow up with. What does that whole thing mean? Basically, what that whole thing means is that if you have a civil judgment that's been filed against a Pennsylvania real estate licensee, meaning that they did something wrong to you, you went to court and you won, and you're not able to collect that judgment for whatever reason, there's a number that you can call there that can help you to recoup those monies that you've lost, up to $100,000 per case.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Do you have any questions about anything on this document?
No.
Awesome. All right, so let's move into the fun part of this, all right? Start talking about some of the things you actually want to talk about. Now, the tough part, we'll get that out right away. I always like to start with financials.
Sure.
What I do is I try to build a financial profile for you to help us find out if you're ready to buy right now, what type of loan I think you're going to get approved for, and where relatively I think you'll fall on how much of a sales price that you're able to afford.
Okay.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What do you do for a living?
I work at a financial firm.
Financial firm?
Mhm.
Oh, fantastic. On average, and you can give me weekly, monthly, or yearly, how much money?
My salary is just under $100,000, make about $95,000 a year.
Okay, perfect. And let's talk about debts. And when I say debts, this is stuff that you owe money on, not recurring payments like a cell phone bill or utilities, anything like that. This is credit cards, student loans, car loans, that type of thing.
Right. Nothing on credit. It's about $400 a month on my car.
Okay,
And about $700 a month on student.
perfect. And that's all the debt that you owe?
I mean, maybe little things here and there, but nothing major.
Okay, and those little things, if you had to put a number value to it, what do you think it tallies up to?
I think 1,100.
Okay, easy enough. Credit score. I know that nobody knows their actual credit score. It's a
Mine's
little tough to
pretty good.
figure out.
I don't think I have any trouble with it.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't checked in a while, but I didn't pay my bills on time. Everything's debited straight from my checking account, so I don't think I'll have any issue on that, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay, if you had to take a guess, do you think it would be above 700?
Yes.
Awesome. That's going to really help out later on down the road. We're going to be able to get you into some better programs if that's the case. And credit depth. So this is something I'm just going to give you a brief talk about. I don't have to ask any questions here. So credit depth is the second part of what a lender is looking at with your credit. So it's not just the score, but it's how many different types of credit you have and how often you've been likely to repay those. So they look at all of that information to get your credit score and your credit history, so that way they can see what type of loan you're going to be approved for. The last question I have to ask, do you have any late payments, defaults, collections, judgments, child support, bankruptcy, or a divorce on your record in the last 3 years?
No.
Perfect. So how we figure out how much you can afford on a home, it's going to be what's called a DTI. It's going to be your debt to income ratio. That's done on a month-to-month basis. What they take is your monthly indentures, they divide that by how much money that you gross per month. And that's going to give us your debt to income ratio, which is going to tell us how much of that is left over for you to put towards a monthly home payment.
Okay.
So let's say your debt to income ratio right now is 20%. Your bills are 20% of what you make. Most of the time, a safe number to go by is about 50%. So that would leave us a margin of 30% left over to figure out how much you can spend per month.
Okay.
Based off of the information you told me, I'm going to completely make up a number here because I don't feel like doing the math. You're able to afford about $1,300 a month on a monthly payment. Now, everything that I just went over there with you, you're going to have to go over that again with a lender when we get you approved. And by the way, since we're here talking about it, you don't already have
I
an
should be
approval,
good.
do you?
I don't have. I mean, I'll be good. I'll be good. I don't need to do all that right now.
Okay, well, I do want to mention it's going to be super important for us to get this ahead of time, because what's going to happen is if we don't have that pre-approval in place when we go to see a home, you're going to end up falling in love with this home. And unfortunately, if you don't have that pre-approval in place, we're not going to be able to make an offer on it quick enough, and that home's going to fall off the market and go under contract before we even get a chance to make our offer.
How long does it take to get a pre-approval?
Usually a pre-approval takes about an hour or so,
Okay.
give or take. So it also depends what time of day and what day of the week we're talking about here. But most of the time, my lenders that I like to use, my preferred lenders, they're really, really good at getting back to me about stuff.
Well, I don't want to get a pre-approval ahead of time because then it's going to hurt. It's going to take a hit on my credit when I have them check it, right?
Yes, there is going to be a small hit on your credit. Most people kind of blow that out of proportion. They think it's going to be a lot higher than what it is. On average, I'm seeing about 5 to 10 points is what it's going to take on your credit. The cool part is, for the next 45 days after that, you can actually shop around with as many lenders as you want.
Okay.
As long as you're still looking for a home loan, it's only going to take one hit on your credit. So I always recommend to everybody, if you want to shop around and try to find the best interest rate and the best lender, you have a 45-day window to do so. Also, the secondary benefit that's going to help us with that is having that pre-approval in place is going to solidify for us where we think you're going to be able to fall on the sales price of a home.
Okay.
Because what we have to do is find out how much money you're going to put down to figure out how much of a loan you're going to take. Then we can backtrack that into figuring out the sales price.
Well,
that you can
1,300 sounds about right. That's kind of my comfort zone where I want to. That's what I want to spend per month.
Perfect.
So it's kind of where I want to be regardless.
Awesome, awesome. So what we'll do is when we finish all this up, I'll give you my info on my preferred lenders. You don't
Okay.
have to use them, but you're more than welcome to. So I'll give you 2 people to get in contact with. We can get the ball rolling on that. They're going to ask for some documentation up front. So be prepared to have some W-2s ready, probably for the last 2 years, tax returns for the last 2 years, your most recent 2 pay stubs.
That sounds like pain.
Yes. So this whole thing is going to be a pain. I'm not going to lie to you. One thing that I preach and that I promise is that I give absolutely no BS through this whole thing. This process is going to suck, okay?
All right.
It's gonna be
Looking forward
tough.
to it. All right. Sounds great.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, but at the end of it, you're going to be a homeowner and it's all going to be worth it. I promise you. So stick with me here. I know it's going to be tough. They're going to literally dig into your entire life and it's going to feel like somebody's literally going through your life with a fine-tooth comb. Well, they are, and there's a reason for that. They're taking a huge risk by giving you a loan. So in exchange for that, they want some documentation to verify that they're taking a good calculated risk versus a bad risk.
Okay.
If you are not likely to repay that loan, well, they're taking a bad risk and they don't want to do that. So that's why they're going to ask you for all this documentation. The reason that we get it up front is so that way when we give our pre-approval, you're not just pre-approved, you're pre-qualified. And that actually goes a long way when it comes to getting our loan accepted, or I'm sorry, our offer accepted, that is, because already having that documentation in place means that they've already vetted you out. They've already verified your income, verified your assets, verified your debts, and they know that you're approved at this price point.
Okay.
That's going to go a long way for the sellers and give them a lot of peace of mind when it comes to accepting your offer over somebody who's just pre-approved versus pre-qualified. So now that we got the hard stuff out of the way, let's talk a little bit more fun, all right? So I always like to ask people, what are you looking for in a home? And I like to break that down into 2 categories, okay? We start with the basic needs. That's gonna be the bare basic bones of what you're looking for. Minimum amount of bedrooms, minimum amount of baths, the areas that you're looking in. And then from there, we're gonna talk about wants, and the wants is gonna be everything else within reason. Obviously, if you're not approved for $1 million, we're not gonna go look at mansions on the hill.
Right.
But other than that, tell me what you're looking for.
Can we interject with questions?
And absolutely, that's the whole purpose.
Time out.
Time out. Just before we get into the next session, I noticed that you led a lot with financial information and asked them a lot of questions about there. Why do you think it's important to lead with financial information before getting into some of the fun stuff?
Great question, Alex. The reason that you lead with the
You guys set that
financial,
up?
no.
Alright.
The reason that you lead with the financial information is because the entire process of what happens from there moving forward changes if they're not ready to get approved for a loan right now. If they're not ready to get approved right now, we automatically switch gears. I do not even talk about what they're looking for in a home. We automatically go into what can we do to get you approved in the fastest amount of time and the most secure way. I don't want you to take uncalculated risks in order to try to get yourself to a point where you can get pre-approved. So we need to talk about your debts, your income, ways that we can subsidize debts, income, generate more income, create less debt, consolidate, do whatever we have to do, get your credit score up, whatever your pain point is.
And one
We
other
need to
thing,
figure out what that is and how to solve it.
there's another financial piece that you didn't answer.
Huge.
What's that?
Cash.
How much?
How much
I
cash
get to that.
do you have in the bank?
That's later.
Alright.
That's only if
Time
you're
in,
ready.
time in.
Yeah, that's only if you're ready to buy a home.
Alright.
Trust me, man.
Alright.
All right. So, what are you looking for in a home? Let's start with
I
the
want
needs.
it
That's the easy one.
surrounded by a yard. I don't want to share a wall with anyone.
Okay, so you want a fully detached home.
Yeah.
Now, is that a absolute need for you?
Yes.
Okay.
I do not want to share a wall with anyone. I've never had that in my life. I want something with a garage. I don't care if it's a big garage. I just don't want to dig my car out of the snow.
Sure.
As far as bedrooms, I don't really care. It's just me and my dog moving in. So,
What kind of dog you got, man?
I have a border collie.
Border collie.
Yes.
Oh, I got a German Shepherd puppy myself.
She's old, so
Oh,
she
yeah?
won't be with me forever.
Oh.
But yeah, as far as bedrooms, bathrooms, I don't know. It's just me. I just need something that I can get in, have something that's gonna hopefully grow in value for me, and then
Sure.
figure it out down the road.
Okay.
So I'm moving out of my fiance's apartment, and I prefer to have something quick. So
Absolutely. So, most of the time, you're going to get pretty lucky with this. There's very rarely do we find a 1-bedroom home. They're just not in existence very often. They do exist, just not very often. So you're probably going to get at least 2 bedrooms. And since it's just yourself, like you said, not really a big deal to only have 1 bathroom since it's just you and the dog. Dog's probably not brushing his teeth at the same time as you anyway, so I'm sure that's going to be fine. You said yard. Do you have a size requirement on that yard, or do you just need
No.
to be detached?
I just want it detached.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So what area are you looking at?
Probably something on the west side of
Okay.
York County.
Okay.
So
So Spring Grove, Hanover,
Yeah.
Thomasville.
I work in West York, right off of Route 30. So
Okay.
as long as it's like 15, 20-minute driving from work, I should be good.
Okay. Are you okay being in the city in West York?
Probably not want to be in the city,
Out of the city?
ideally.
Okay.
I mean, I'm open to anything. I would rather keep it just wide open. I don't want to eliminate anything. I don't want to miss out on something to be of great value
Absolutely.
just because I didn't know that was, right outside of a minute extra drive
Right.
being there. So,
And that's exactly what I do when I come to set up your search. So I use this criteria to set you up on what's called an MLS search. It's what we as realtors use to upload our listings to the internet. So what I'm going to do is give you access to that through my portal, and it's going to set a criteria of homes that meet
Okay.
the search that you want. And what's going to happen is that's going to automatically get emailed to you literally the second.
yeah, I
they
do
get
that
the
already
market.
through a couple different sites.
Yeah, so I'm sure you probably are searching on Zillow, Trulia, Homes, Realtor.com, a bunch of those sites, right?
Yep.
So they're great sites, and they have a lot of great information on there. 2 big problems with those sites that I've seen. One, the algorithm that they use, because they pull all that information from our MLS, the algorithm that they use occasionally, not often, but occasionally gets stuff wrong. I've seen wrong taxes. I've seen wrong square footages. One time, I actually saw the wrong price on the home.
Okay.
I don't know if it just wasn't updated in time or if they actually got it wrong, but it was not the correct one for the price that was listed on the MLS. The other big problem with that is they're not updated in real time. So the stuff that you're seeing today might not necessarily be what's actually going on today. The home that you see for sale today might actually already be pending. Obviously, in a seller's market and a fast-moving market like we're in, time is of the essence, and not being number one to see that first really hurts your chances of being able to get there to see that.
Yeah, my uncle told me, look, don't even buy a house right now because it's a seller's market. I'm gonna pay out the nose. I'm gonna overspend to buy something. Like, it's just not the right time. Wait till the market turns.
Yeah,
So I'm a little concerned. I don't wanna have to overpay for something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you that it's definitely a seller's market, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a buyer's market. It's really weird. We're in this very unique situation that happened right now where we're in both a seller's market, but not a terrible market to be a buyer either. So let me explain. Sellers, obviously, they're making more money on the homes, but the cool part is it's not like this is this overinflated market that's going to crash in the middle of nowhere. We've actually had this data for such a long period of time. We're talking 18 plus months of data of selling at this rate. That's actually been so long that now even appraisals are catching up to that. Appraisals work on a 6-month rolling average, so home prices over the last 6 months dictate what your home's going to appraise for. So since people have been bringing extra cash to make up the difference on those appraisals, well, now all of those homes that happened in the last 12 and 6 months are now being used as comparisons for the homes that are now being sold. So because of that, it's actually caught itself up. And in my opinion, now obviously this is just my opinion, I'm just a guy, I look at a lot of data and statistics on there, I don't see any evidence of that crashing anytime soon. What I personally see is a very long tail of the sales prices staying about where we're at, with maybe actually another 5% gain this year. And over the next, we'll call it 9 to 18 months, we're gonna see a slow tail of competition level slowly decreasing. So what I've noticed from the peak at about November 2020, we were seeing on average about 11 to 15 offers per home. Now, we're average, I'm seeing at about 1 to 5 offers going on most homes. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still stellar homes out there that are getting 11 plus offers, but the average from what I'm seeing is about 1 to 5. So even though the sales prices are staying about the same, the competition level has decreased, which obviously makes it better for you as a buyer. Less competition means you're not gonna have to gouge that price incredibly high over the list. So we've actually seen the list price to sales price ratio come down closer to 100%, meaning it sold for exactly what it listed for. It was at 103, now we're at 101 point something, I forget what the point was, but it's definitely coming down closer to that number. The other part that makes it good for buyers is the fact that we have historically low interest rates right now. So even though you might be paying $10,000 or $15,000 more over the home, if you plan on staying in that home for the next 30 years and seeing out the fruition of your loan, you're actually gonna end up netting a little bit in the positive because you're not gonna pay as much in interest. 1.5% higher in an interest rate is, depending on the sales price of the home, obviously, on average is gonna save you about $30,000 over a 30-year span.
Wow.
It's a lot of money. So if you take that with the $15,000 that you're paying extra, you're still netting a $15,000 positive in the long run. So
Okay.
for that reason alone, it still makes it a good buyer's market, but I don't want you to get me wrong here, it's not the best buyer's market. Is there ever going to be the best buyer's market? Sure, I'm sure it'll eventually
Okay,
come around.
I'm just letting
but-
you know I don't wanna overpay for them.
Sure, absolutely, and that's something that we can talk about on an individual home by home basis. If there's a home out there that's maybe just a little bit too much competition for your blood, we can always just skip that home and move on to the next one, or we can always put in the offer that you're comfortable with, and as long as you're comfortable making that offer and you lose the home, then that's okay.
Okay.
Because my goal here is really to match what you want to put out. I want to
Well,
match
I'm
your
ready to go.
motivation
I wanna
level.
get in something hopefully, before the winter ends, and
Okay.
be ready to go,
So you're looking like end of February, early March?
I'm looking as soon as I can.
All right. Well, to me, that sounds like you're probably a motivation level of 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I gotta
so-
get out of my fiance's house. She's
All
gonna
right.
Kill me and the dog.
Well, let's do it. We'll get through this. We'll get to the paperwork. We'll get everything rolling, and we'll get you in a home
Okay.
in that amount of time. Now, on average, most people are expecting about 3 to 5 months to get into a home. But with your motivation level and the fact that you're so open to
Does it
different
take 3
options,
to 5 months to get in a home?
yes. So
Well, I don't have that amount of time.
typically,
Probably just rent.
you should probably just rent.
I don't have 3 to 5 months.
No.
I need to find something within, like I said, by the end of the winter, so.
Well, by the end of the winter would be about 3 months.
Okay.
From where we're at. So with you aggressively looking and not having a whole lot of stipulations of what
So
we
if
can
I found a
typically
home
get.
tomorrow, it's gonna take you 3 to 5 months to move in?
Yes. About 3 months would be
Okay.
the actual time in which you could move in. So what's gonna happen is we're gonna get started.
Time out. If he finds a house tomorrow, writes an offer, he can be in 30, 45 days. You said 3 months.
Yeah, because I'm gonna tell him that he's not gonna find a house tomorrow in about 20 seconds.
Okay.
Turn him back in.
Alright, so what's gonna happen is I'm gonna get you set up on that MLS search, okay?
Okay.
And we're gonna go out and start looking at homes. Even if you found the perfect home for you tomorrow, you can expect to lose the first 1 to 3 offers that you're going to make. Because honestly, with it being a seller's market like this, there's just a little bit of a culture shock when you get in there. The very first offer that you're gonna make is probably not gonna be strong enough to secure the home. So more than likely, even if we found the perfect home for you tomorrow, that's not gonna end up being the home that you're gonna move into. Now, there's always a chance that we can get it, right? And I don't wanna discourage you too much, but also I wanna keep expectations based in reality,
Okay,
because that's what I do.
That's what I wanna hear. I wanna hear it like it's gonna be like this.
Exactly, and I'm never gonna sell you short. I'm gonna tell you exactly how it's gonna be, so that way when the burden of the problem does come, it weighs less on your shoulders because we've already talked about it, and you've already dealt with that internally. So me telling you ahead of time that you're gonna lose your first 1 to 3 offers, when it happens, means that it's not gonna hurt you as bad. We can brush it off, move on to the next one, and keep rolling. What happens with a lot of other people out there is they don't get informed about this ahead of time, and then it's like a stab in the heart when they lose that first offer, and it makes them so disheartened about the whole entire thing that sometimes they just give up. So I wanna stop that from happening to you, because I can guarantee you that we can get you a home. I just can't guarantee you that we can do it on the first try.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so on average, it's taking me about anywhere from 30 to about 45 days to get somebody like yourself who's really, really motivated and not a whole lot of stipulations under contract. So with that being said, about 30 days, let's call it a month, for you to get under contract. And then from there, it's gonna take us about 30 to 45 days to actually get you into the home. Now, I'm gonna talk about a little bit more about that part of the process in a little bit. So we'll go back to where I was getting with for the wants. Is there anything that you're looking for in a home that you really, really want that
I
isn't
want
a
a nice
necessity?
kitchen, ideally a finished basement, but I don't wanna rule anything out,
Okay.
to be honest. If it's a good value and it's a good price, I'm not much of a handyman, so I don't really wanna have to fix a bunch of stuff up. I
Fair
want
enough.
it to be move-in ready, garage, yeah, you know what I mean? I don't have a tremendous amount of like, fields I can tell you that I have to have at the moment.
That's good. The more open-ended it is, the easier it is for us to solidify getting you that home. So I'm glad to hear that. That's really gonna help us out on getting your time frame, kind of where we need it to be. Obviously, guys, I'm not taking any notes here, but this entire time with a real person, I would actually be taking notes, so. All right, so we kind of already hit the aspect that I was about to jump into, because this is the point where I would start talking about expectations, what you can expect moving forward, but we already mentioned all of that. So what I'm gonna do is actually move on to the next part of this, and that's the home buying steps, okay? So I'm gonna break down step by step how we
Please
go
do. How
through
does
the
this work?
process.
What do I do?
So first and foremost, you're already doing step number 1. Congrats, you're already on the right track, and that's meeting with a realtor. The second step, or honestly, I consider these both to be the first step, they're interchangeable, and that would be getting approved for the loan. I know we talked about that earlier. You can start at either one and go to the other. Doesn't really matter. They're both gonna send you to the other one anyway, so eventually you'll get them both done. After that, we're gonna set you up on the MLS like I spoke about. You're gonna start looking for some homes. You're gonna text me 123 Apple Street looks cool, Adam, when can we go check it out? We're gonna go and see it. We're gonna look at like maybe 5 or 7 homes. You're gonna wanna make an offer on something. We're gonna write up that offer, we're gonna send it out, and a couple different things can happen, okay? From there, we can either lose the offer to other competition, we can have the offer be countered by the seller if there's no other competition. The seller can accept our offer, or our offer can get flat out rejected. Those are the 4 ways that this can go, okay? So, if it gets rejected, we just start back at the get you set up on the MLS and looking at homes thing. You're already set up, but you're gonna continue to look, we're gonna keep going out there, keep making offers until we get it. If it gets countered, you're gonna go back and forth with the seller until you figure out a price point that works, or again, it gets rejected, and then we go back to the starting board and do it all over again. And then the final one is you actually get your offer accepted. If you get your offer accepted, we do a little happy dance, but
Okay.
at the same time, we don't get too excited because there's a lot of work that needs to be done yet to get you to the finish line. All right, so in the first 5 days when we go under contract, a lot of stuff is gonna happen. Not a whole lot of stuff that you personally have to do, but a lot of stuff that we have to do, and a couple things that you have to get to us.
Okay.
So the very first thing is gonna be an EMD, which is due in the first 5 days.
What's an EMD?
EMD, thank you for asking. I was about to ask if you knew. That's called an earnest money deposit. It's gonna be very similar to a security deposit in a rental.
Your down payment.
No, it's different. So this is actually money that you're giving to the seller to hold while we get through the transaction. This is money that you're letting them hold on to, and not them personally, it's their broker's escrow account. But you're letting them hold on to that through the transaction to show, hey, this is how serious I am about buying this home. I'm gonna let you hold on to, just for an example, I'm gonna use $2,000.
Okay.
$2,000 of my money, and if I back out for a bad reason, you get to keep that money for me wasting your time. So
Okay.
obviously that poses the question, what's a good and bad reason to back out of a contract? Well, the easiest way to break it down for you is a good reason is anything that we have written expressly into the contract. If there's a way that we can get out based on the contract, that's a perfectly viable reason to get out. Every time you back out based on any of those terms, you get that back.
Okay.
If you back out, let's say, for a bad reason, like you went in there and you saw that the color of the walls were this color when you bought it, we get 2 weeks before settlement, and you go, Adam, I can't stand the color of these walls, I don't want the home. Well, obviously, in the real world, I'm gonna tell you
Go
a
paint
couple,
it, right?
yeah, cans of paint's gonna be cheaper than losing $2,000, but I would tell you, okay, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to buy the home, but I wanna let you know up front, I'm not gonna be able to get you your $2,000 back. I'm gonna try, but I'm not gonna be able to get you that $2,000 back. That's gonna get forfeited to them for getting essentially cold feet. Because the walls were unfortunately this color when we bought it, and they didn't change it, so it's not really a valid reason for us to back out. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay.
So from there, day one, the appraisal gets ordered, inspections get scheduled, and title begins to search for the title. Title search is called title insurance, which is done by the settlement company here in Pennsylvania. Give me 1 second. What that does is ensures the integrity of the title that you're getting. So basically it means that there's not gonna be any liens, encumbrances, judgments, anything like that on the home. That can be past due taxes, that can be a mechanic's lien from work done 15 years ago, that can be some agreement that some dude in a straw hat made with some guy back in 1882 when the home was originally deeded that never got settled. It can be anything. They look back 100 years in the past to see if there's anything like that going on, and they give you either a clean title or a non-clean title. I won't really go into what happens if we get a non-clean title, because you're going to be getting a mortgage, which means that you're not going to be getting the deal if the title's not made clean. So basically what's gonna have to happen is whoever the seller is going to have to satisfy those unclean marks in order to make that a clean title to give it to you, so there's nothing due. The reason that you get that title insurance is moving forward, it's a one-time upfront fee that you pay, which unfortunately is kind of controlled in Pennsylvania, so there's not really a whole lot of fluctuation in the price that you can pay for it. But it basically is a one-time upfront payment that you make to ensure that nobody's ever going to come back to you for those past due taxes, liens, or encumbrances.
Okay.
Title company would handle that for you, and that would go, well, for their insurance. So, we got the appraisal ordered, inspections are scheduled, and the title search has started. Then, my computer's gonna shut down, and then when we get it back up, the inspections are then done, okay? The buyer should attend if possible. Obviously, we know everybody's got crazy schedules this day, so if you absolutely can't, let me know. I'm gonna schedule it on a time that I can be there to make sure somebody's there to represent us. I always try to be there with you, but obviously if my schedule can't make it happen, I might not be able to make it at a time that you can make it. But we need at least somebody to be there. I always recommend you being there if you can, because it's really cool. They're gonna give you some extra little tidbits about different things you can do to make the home a little better, or general maintenance tips, or maybe something's loose somewhere that's not enough to put into the report, but they still wanna let you know about it. So I always say it's great to be there. Once they do the report, typically within 24 to 48 hours, we get back the actual physical report that we can use for negotiation purposes. Now, once you get an inspection, there's going to be a second round of negotiations that happen if there's anything going on in the home. I'll tell you right now, there will be something wrong with the home. There's no such thing as a clean inspection report. If there is, fire the inspector. He did a horrible job. There's no such thing as a perfect home. They don't exist. What we want to worry about is the stuff that really matters. You know, if there's an outlet that's loose that needs re-screwed in, I'm sure you probably have a Phillips head screwdriver that you can probably do that on your own. But if there's ductwork damaged, or the furnace is going out, or we got a hole in the roof, these are major things that are going to affect your bottom dollar, and we want to get those taken care of, obviously, before you would move into the home. So we negotiate to have the sellers either fix those items or give us some money towards getting those repaired, or change the sales price in accordance with that. Then we go back and forth. We try to find a common resolution.
Okay.
If we cannot find a common resolution and they're just unwilling to do anything, you either at that point have the choice to accept that flat outright and just continue to move forward, or we can terminate the contract and we go all the way back to starting to look at homes, and we do this all over again. Does that make sense?
Yep, okay.
All right. All that's happening while in the background, the appraisal is being completed. This isn't something that you have to be there for. You can if you want, but it's really just kind of pointless. The guy's there for like maybe 5 or 10 minutes. He snaps like 4 photos, says 0 words, and bounces out. And then in another, usually week to 2 weeks after that, we actually get the physical results. I'll give you a heads up right now. Appraisals are taking forever and they're slowing deals down. So there's a very good chance that I'm going to tell you it's due this day, and then we don't get it back until 3 or 4 days after that. It's just something that we're going to have to deal with. It's just an unfortunate part of the business right now and how crazy it's been. Then, once again, there's going to be a possible renegotiation phase if something doesn't happen. So how an appraisal works is the bank goes out and they hire a third-party, unbiased person to come in and determine what the value of the home is. Let's say you bought a home at $200,000 and the appraised value comes in at $200,000 or higher. If it comes in at $200,000 or higher, we do a happy dance with no repairs because you just got the value of your home. And if it comes in higher, you just hit the jackpot because you just got free equity into your home. Now, what happens if it appraises lower? A couple different things can happen, okay? Let's say, again, $200,000 is the sales price and it appraises at $190,000.
Okay.
Yikes, $10,000, that's a lot. So we have a couple options of how we can handle this. One, the seller can lower that price to $190,000 and they can eat the $10,000. Two, you can bring $10,000 more in cash to be able to cover that difference. Three, we can have some hybrid of those two options. You can bring 5, they can lower at 5. You can bring 2,500, they lower at 7,500. Any way we can do to get it done. The last option is the unfortunate one where you're not willing to bring more money and they're not willing to come down in price, and unfortunately we just have to terminate the contract, and once again we go back. But just so you know, that's a very valid reason to cancel that contract. You're going to be getting your earnest money deposit back, okay? So I don't want you to think that you're going to lose that $2,000 that you put on the line because of something silly like that. We're only talking about times that you decided to get cold feet and back out is really the majority of the reasons why you would lose that EMD.
Okay.
From there, we're going to say that it appraised and we made the value. So we're moving forward with the deal. Then usually a couple days or sometimes even before we get that appraisal, you're going to get your mortgage commitment. If we get it before the appraisal's done and due back, it's going to be in contingent of that appraisal coming back correctly. But if it's already done, then you're going to get a flat out mortgage commitment. Congratulations, you've been approved for your loan. Once again, we do a happy dance. At this point, we've crossed the 3 major hurdles for you to get the home. It's very, very likely at this point that you're going to get the home.
Okay.
So at this point, I tell everybody take a breath of fresh air, relax a little bit, because it's very unlikely that you're not going to get this home. It's very unlikely. Yes, I said that right. So after all of that, we're finally getting down to the wire. About 3 days before we get to the settlement table, you're going to get what's called a clear to close. That means every requirement has been met. Every single thing that you were required to give them has been vetted and verified, and you are officially buying the home. Unless some catastrophic, crazy thing happens out of nowhere, you're getting this home. We're at like a 99.8% chance that you're getting the home.
Great. Okay.
Then we're getting down to the wire. 24 to 48 hours prior to settlement, you're going to get your final numbers. This is called a final Alta. A couple days prior to that, I'm going to give you what's called a preliminary Alta. But that one, like it states, is just preliminary. It's not going to be the final numbers. They're bound to change. Once I get that final Alta, I'm going to be sending you a text message that you're going to show to your bank teller. It's going to give you instructions on the check that you need to provide to the settlement company. It's going to be one check that you make out to the settlement company who's going to disperse all of the money to everybody that needs it. So all of the funds and fees that you're going to have to provide for this deal is going to be one lump sum check made out to them, and they're going to handle it to everybody. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Then we finally get to the day of settlement, the exciting day. The nervousness is growing. You're dying in anticipation. 1 hour prior to settlement, we're going to set up what's called the pre-settlement walkthrough, okay? This is the final walkthrough of the home for you to verify that nothing's been done, no windows have been broken, no colors have been changed, nobody came in and demolished the place, took out all the copper wiring, everything like that. As long as everything looks the same that it was.
Does that happen?
No, not really.
Okay.
Very, very rarely. But it is possible, and that's exactly why we have that check, to make sure that nothing like that did happen. If it did, well, there's a big discussion that we're about to have with the seller.
I hope so. Okay.
Yeah, but obviously, most of the time that does not occur. I've never personally experienced it in my career. What I have experienced is people not cleaning up. They leave a little bit of debris back behind, they didn't vacuum, they didn't sweep the floors. That's typically what we deal with. Usually at that point, we're so close to getting it done, Most people are just like, you know what, I'll just sweep it myself.
Okay.
But as long as you're okay with that, we're gonna sign off on a pre-settlement form saying that you're okay to accept the home in its present condition. From there, we're gonna head over to the settlement table. So at the settlement table, you're about to sign your life away for the next 30 years. You're gonna get a big old stack of documents like this. Depending on your loan type, it might be like this. But it's gonna be a lot of documentation, all right? Your hand's gonna be cramped up by the end of it. It's gonna be about 45 minutes to an hour sitting there at the table, and at the end of it, I'm gonna hand you some awesome keys. We're probably not gonna do it after. At the pre-settlement walkthrough, we're gonna take some cool pictures for Instagram. Hey, what's up? I just bought a house. We're gonna do a happy dance. I'm gonna give you a huge high five, and you just bought a home. my good
All right.
sir.
Sounds great.
How's all that sound to you?
Sounds good.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so if
Can
all
I
of that
interject?
sounds,
I wanna
Take
stop
another
right
time
there
out just
before
to
we
add
get
a
it.
break if anything. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, one, I think we're gonna need intermission. That's been like 45 minutes straight of watching. If I'm not watching this and reading back verbatim what you're saying, what are some of the concepts here I can take away that can help me in my buyer's presentation?
Yeah.
Right? So you're saying a lot of really great stuff, but unless I really memorize verbatim what you're saying, I'm not gonna be able to utilize this. So what are some of the concepts that you've developed to create this, and what are some of the things that you're why are you saying these things? Why are you doing
Yeah.
these things?
So the reasons for saying and doing all the things that I do in my buyer's appointment is a couple different reasons. One, to vet and verify this person. For one, trying to figure out what their situation is, to figure out exactly how I can help them best. I want to find those pain points that this person is having, and I want to hit those specifically. Obviously, in this case, he didn't have any pain points, he's ready to go, but that's not how all of these play out. Sometimes their credit's bad, sometimes they owe a lot of money, sometimes they're going through a filthy divorce. Whatever the situation is, I touch on that situation. The other reason that I ask all of this information is for myself. So that way, I'm not wasting my time showing somebody homes that is not qualified to purchase a home. I'm also doing a service to my lenders because I love them so much and the work that they do for me. I don't want to waste their time sending them somebody that I know is not going to get approved. So I vet out their information first to make sure that I feel that there's at least a good chance that they're going to get approved before I send them to the lender. Or if I know they're not going to get approved, but I need to get their credit report to figure out what's going on for them, I can figure that out. So that way when I go and I give them to the lender, I can say, oh, by the way, they're not going to get approved, but I need their credit pool. So can we do it? Gives the lender the information that we need. We know that I'm not wasting their time. And then I can help to, basically turn things around for them over whatever period of time it takes.
You're really
and
setting
get it
the
done.
pace. I
Yeah.
mean, you're giving them expectations as to
Correct.
what to expect.
And exactly what she just said, the last portion of it is setting those expectations, making sure that the person that I'm about to work with understands what the market's doing, how the process works, how I work as an agent, what they can expect from me, and what they need to expect from themselves moving forward. That's why I tell them that the process sucks, that this is hard, it's going to be difficult, how the market's working. All of these things I say them for a reason, so that way I don't have to have these conversations later. And so that way I don't have problems with my clients later, because what happens is people don't talk about these things, and then their clients aren't ever going to bring it up to them. I do everything in this buyer's appointment to make sure that when my buyer walks away from this appointment, they have no questions left over. There's nothing that they need to ask because everything's been answered for them already. And that's exactly what I do in every appointment. At the very end of the appointment, I ask the same question every single time. Do you have any more questions for me? And everybody gives me the exact same answer. Honestly, man, no. You covered everything in such depth that I got nothing. And then I always say, awesome. Well, that means I did my job right. But if you have any other questions, please let me know. If you think of something tonight, text me, call me, send me a carrier pigeon, blow smoke signals, whatever you gotta do, get a hold of me.
I think that's probably the most important thing. The biggest takeaway anyone can really take from this is that it's not necessarily what you say, in this presentation. It is,
Yeah.
that's very important, but it's why you're saying it's to set that expectation for the client that you build that trust right away. That by the time that this hour is up, this client fully understands that I know what I'm talking about. They fully understand that I know everything about the industry and what I'm going to do. And if they know that I know what I'm talking about and they can put trust in me to find their home, well, then there's no reason they're not going to work with me. So no matter what the charge is, because they've already built that trust with me, so really the concept of this whole thing is more about how am I gonna set my expectations
That's the
to
final
to
part.
build that trust with my client. And that makes this next part, I know, much easier.
We might have to do a part 2 for this if we're going this late though.
We got 10 minutes to an hour, so.
Can you do?
I think we do the buyer's
10
agreement.
minutes?
I want you to do the
15?
buyer's agreement.
Okay.
15? I'm gonna do 15.
12:05 is lunch.
I will say one of the best things you can do after all that is say, do you feel comfortable working with me as your buyer's agent? I'm sure
That's
you have
after I
some-
go over the buyer's agency.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the very last question. Also too, demonstrating everything that I just talked about solidifies in this person's mind that I am a real agent. I'm not some dude just doing this. I know what I'm talking about. I also typically, I'm not saying it here because I'm not trying to like gloat on a camera, but typically I say that I'm an investor, I do flips, and I have rental property as well, which again, is really just to solidify to this person that I'm in every facet of this business and I know what I'm talking about. I'm a trusted advisor because, well, I'm successful in my own investments, so I can help you be successful in your own investment.
But even if you're not one of those successful investors, it's more about building that trust and
Yeah,
relationship
you
with.
use whatever you have in your toolbox.
Right.
That's just my tool in my
And the
toolbox.
way Adam does that so well is that he has a ton of information and a ton of knowledge on real estate. He's studied investing, he has studied all that stuff in real estate, so when somebody asks him a question, he can kind of come off the cuff with it.
Yep.
And if I can come off the cuff with, 2 + 2, I nail 4, people are gonna think I really understand what's going on, regardless if I do or not.
If you wanna-
It's more about portraying that information out there, saying that, hey, I know what I'm talking about, you can trust me.
Yep.
Really,
if you want to
that's
take away anything from this whole thing, don't even listen to any of the words I'm saying. Just be a student of the game and just know as much about real estate as you humanly can. Because I promise you, the more that you know about real estate, the easier it's going to be to answer any question that comes up.
Having a checklist that walks people through the buying, all the expectations of what to expect ahead of time really does fix a
Yep.
lot of
And that's
problems
in this
immediately.
packet, by the way. Which is again, like, I'm not going to go over that just for the sake of time, but it's something that I go over at the very end. Alright, so I'm going to breeze through the first parts. Well, I'm going to breeze through the middle parts of this, okay? I'm going to focus on like the spiel about how much I charge and all of that.
Okay.
That's where I'm going to focus. Alright, so we made it through all of the fun stuff, so let's talk business, okay?
Okay.
Now, as you can see here, this is a contract, alright? Once we sign this bad boy, I'm officially your realtor, and everything that's in this document starts to take place. As of right now, we're just two people talking about real estate. I don't work for you in any capacity. The only way I can work for you in a legal capacity is for us to sign this document together.
Okay.
Alright? Now, I personally hate signing contracts, which is hilarious because I work in real estate and do it every day of my life. But I really I get weirded out by signing contracts with people, right? So before we even talk about this thing, I want to let you know if we decide to sign this and start to work with me, I also have what's called a cancellation of contract that I can write up for you at any point. At the end of the day, I really don't want to work with anybody who doesn't want to work with me. There's just too many people out there, and there's just no need for me to go work with people that don't like me. So if we get 2 weeks down the road or 2 months down the road and you go, Adam, I'm sorry, you're just not cutting it, I can write up that cancellation for you at any time. I'm never going to hold you hostage. All I would ask is that we have a quick conversation about whatever I'm doing, and if it's something that I can fix, I'm gonna try to fix it, but if not, I totally get it. If you're like, Adam, your face is just so ugly and I can't stand looking at you, alright, I'm not your guy.
Is that in the contract?
I'm not your guy. No, that is not in the contract. I'm just telling you that that's a thing. Alright, so this contract here is a standardized document, alright? Everybody in real estate has to sign the same document, and you're not legally working with anybody until you sign this document. If I didn't have to legally sign this with you, I probably wouldn't, but unfortunately I do. It's just part of the business, so let's get into it. This whole first paragraph up here is talking about who my company is, who I am, and our legal designations, okay?
Great.
This little section here with these two check boxes is asking whether or not you've signed this document with another realtor. You did not, is that correct?
Correct.
Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and check no for you on that. This whole paragraph here is talking about the length of our contract, okay?
Okay.
By law, I'm only allowed to make this for 1 year. I typically just make that for 1 year, because if this process takes us 6 months or 7 months or 8 months, I don't wanna make it for 2 and just have to keep re-signing this bad boy.
Okay.
Also knowing that you're allowed to get out of it whenever you want. If you're not happy with me, well, might as well just make it for the year in case it takes us that long.
Okay.
The next section here, this is the bread and butter, this is the meat and potatoes, this is the most important part of this contract, okay? This talks about how much money I charge, who it's due to, and when it's due, all right? So I always like to paint a little picture for people on this because it gets a little confusing. I like to break this down into two categories, all right? So we have 4,500 and we have 3%. I know it doesn't mean anything to you at the moment, but give me a quick second. There's a break-even point here of $150,000, okay? So how my commission works is a listing agent makes a deal with whoever they're selling the home for. They charge them X percentage of the price of the home, and they give me X percentage of that. Sometimes they split it in half, sometimes they give me a little less, sometimes a little more. Really just depends on the agent, the seller, and what they've worked out.
Okay.
So what I charge is $4,500 or 3%. Luckily, in Pennsylvania, most, if not all of that, is going to come from the seller's side. Okay, so there's a break-even point at 150,000. I know you're probably looking above 150,000, so we'll focus more on the 3%, but I want to show you both sides of the spectrum in case you look at something 149,900 or something like that, okay? So this is actually the easier side, so we'll get through this quick and I'll explain it. How this works is I like easy even numbers, so we're going to use $100,000 for a price point here, okay? At 3%, that would be $3,000.
Okay.
So if the listing agent is offering me 3% on that, that's how much I'm getting from them. So in order to figure out how much is coming out of your pocket, we just do some simple math here, and we figure out that 1,500 is coming out of your pocket. Now, obviously, if we get all the way up to 150, that is where it becomes 4,500. So if you buy a home at 150,000, it would be 4,500 at 3%. Does that make sense?
Why do you have a minimum?
I have a minimum because I want to make sure that every single property and every single client that I ever deal with gets extreme care and attention. I have really good quality service and I'm able to provide things that other realtors simply can't. Because of that, I do have a minimum threshold of which I charge for my services to make sure that obviously I can keep the bills paid and keep my girlfriend happy. She has a huge Amazon shopping habit and I gotta keep up with that, so it makes it a little tough. But no, that is why I charge what I charge, because obviously I have very quality service. I'm also one of the top 10% of agents in New York County. When you come to me, the stuff just gets done. Also, what I like to do for all of my clients is take all of the stress that I can off of your shoulders, place it on my own. My ultimate goal for you as a client is for you to walk through this entire process with me, and at the very end, you tell me, Adam, I thought you said this process was gonna be hard. If I hear that come out of your mouth at the very end of this, I'm well worth my $4,500 that I charge in commission.
All right. Okay.
On the other side of things, and that's likely where you're going to be, is going to be 3% of the purchase price of the home. The cool part here is, most of the time, the agent offers me 3%. In the chances that they don't, it happens every once in a while, probably about 5% or so of the homes that we look at, I'm not gonna be getting that full 3%. Most of the time, they're going to offer me 2.5% instead of 3%. Again, I like easy, even numbers. So we're gonna say 200,000 is the sales price here.
Okay.
And if they're offering me 2.5%, that would be $5,000. Now, obviously, we know that 3% is going to be $6,000. So once again, we do the simple math here, and $1,000 is what's coming out of your pocket.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Now, if they're offering me the full 3%, guess how much comes out of your pocket? $0. So I'm going to let you know on every single home how much that's going to be, because it is going to be unique to each home, because it depends on what that listing agent decides with their seller and what they're deciding to give to me. Make sense?
Okay.
Awesome. The only other thing that's due is a $400 broker fee. Unfortunately, I don't get a single penny of that. That goes to my brokerage and my team for
Okay.
keeping the lights on, doing business, and keeping E&O insurance here for us at the brokerage. Now, none of that money is due until the day that we get to the settlement table, okay? Right here and here is where I could charge you some or all of that fee up front. Some agents decide to do that. Some agents decide not to. Me personally, I believe that we work in a performance-based industry. I have a lot of jobs, but at the end of the day, it boils down to one thing, and that's handing you keys so you can move into a home. If I can't do that one job, what am I really getting paid for? So that's why I put everything at the back end. It's all wrapped up into your closing costs, okay? It's all part of that one check that you give to the settlement company at the very, very end. And here's the coolest part. If you don't ever buy a home, you don't owe me a penny.
Okay.
Does that sound fair?
Yep. Okay.
Awesome. Does that make sense for you? Because this is where I really like to spend the majority of my time in this contract. A lot from this point forward is really just a repeat of what's in the consumer notice with a couple extra tidbits in there. But this is super important to me, okay? I'm very, very transparent about my business. I will literally break this down to you and show you how much I pay in taxes to my team and everything if you're interested. I don't want to sell
We don't
anybody
need to do
short.
that.
Okay, cool.
Certainly not on tape.
All right.
Is that it? Is that good?
Is
Until
it?
you got through the financing part,
Yeah.
that's what we were getting through. I thought that was good. The rest of this, I think as agents, we all kind of know what's in that contract and how to explain it. I think this was really beneficial, not even so
You get my
much
2 cool jokes, man.
of how you said, well, we can train people what on those jokes are later, but really what I see the big benefit comes from this is that setting that expectation. You get paid a minimum commission because I said it up front that I'm getting paid this amount. And I've explained it very simple terms with a check on how I get paid. So when it gets down to it, it's not like anyone feels like they got the wool pulled over their eyes or they feel like they got shaded. Now I'm actually happy to pay it because one, luckily the listing agent paid some of it and it's now seen as a benefit. But I knew this all from the beginning, and that's where I think a lot of real estate agents get their bad name is a used car salesman, right? Is, oh, well, it was going to be this, and then this fee, and then this fee, and then this fee. What Adam does is set those expectations up front and says, this is the level of quality you're going to get, so they can trust them. So,
And blatant honesty. I'm not the cheapest guy out there. There's other people that will do it for less, but they're not going to give you the quality of service that I can provide. So if that's the right person for you, great. But if I'm the right person, let's move forward.
that alone sets the expectation right there that I provide a top level quality of service. Again, any agent that watches videos or tries to utilize this into their own business, you have to understand the concepts of, I need to really set that expectation of what to do. Now, how do I set that expectation? What things do I say to set that expectation? That's where we can help you out. That's why we have these trainings here. That's why when you can go and replay some of these videos or watch some of the future ones, you pick up on some of the more conversational pieces that set that
I'll say
expectation.
this, thank you, Adam, because it's sometimes difficult to be on your A game 100% of the time when you're in those appointments all the time. It's even harder to do it in front of a room full of real estate agents and on camera and have everything directed at you and still be on top of it and put your A game in it. And it's not easy when the camera's on and there's a group of people all staring at you trying to do the same thing. So nice job, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, guys, 2 last little tidbits though, before I end it. One is at the very end, when you go through this whole document, one super important thing that I didn't get to do is ask them to sign it. If you do not ask them to sign it, I'm personally going to come in and I'm going to slap you. Okay? Because you can't get business if you don't ask for the business. You have to ask for the business. Don't say, go ahead and take a look at this and get back to me in a couple days. Say, do you understand everything that I went over here today? Yes? Fantastic. Do you feel comfortable signing that with me today? If you do, great. Let's start. Let's get to work. I'm ready to work for you. That's what you ask.
You gotta close.
Say no.
Yeah,
You gotta close at the end of the day.
If they say no.
If they say no, they say no. Then you fall back to the, okay, take it back. Have your parents review it. Have somebody take a look at it. If you have any other questions, I'm here for you. How about I touch base with you tomorrow and let's see if we can get this signed and start moving forward.
Introduce, qualify, provide value, close.
Yeah.
You don't close, none of that other stuff matters.
And the other thing is, you heard me trip up a couple times during the conversation. That is okay. You're going to do that. It doesn't matter. Nobody gives a singular shit. Nobody even remembers that you messed up. You continue, you just act like it didn't happen. Or make a joke, or however you decide to deal with it, but don't get stumped up and don't stop because you said something wrong or choked on your word. Or you see how many times I take a break and take a drink? I do that intentionally. I always have a drink with me so I can do that.
It's better to
Give me a
project
second,
that.
I gotta take a sip.
Project
also
that
because
ease
my
and
patience-
confidence is what the other side of the table wants to see.
Yeah.
That you know what you're doing. If you're stopping, I don't know what this part is. Hold on a second. Let me
Done.
read this. Let me see this. It just really shows you don't know what you're doing.
Do you guys have any questions coming in? You don't have a license. You've been in it for a
This is
while,
the
so
guy's
you
first
see
real
kind of
estate
experience
I know, I was like,
different things. So there's a couple
insane.
different things. We
This is
got
awesome.